Well, that didn't work. So you guys are as surprised as I am, because, yeah. Welcome back to the channel, and today I want to answer a few questions about this. If you guys are unfamiliar with what this is the world's smallest off-road wrecker. It started life as a Suzuki Samurai, and I have helped building it for Matt's Off-Road Recovery. Some of the things we've done so far is, firstly, we pulled that 1.3 motor out because it's just weak, carbureted, we didn't want it, and we put in this much larger, much stronger 2-liter motor out of a Chevy Tracker. Top that off with adapting it to a TH180 3-speed automatic that we rebuilt right here in the shop to a Tracker transfer case that we had already modified prior to starting this, actually, to take a doubler. It was originally set up with a Suzuki Samurai case behind it, but we knew the Suzuki Samurai case might not be strong enough and went to a Land Rover LT 230 case. So this thing has all-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive, and it's going to have the ability to still pull around and do front digs, rear digs, things like that if they get in a pickle. We've also taken the stock Samurai body and we've bobbed it up. So now the Samurai body is more of an extended cab body. That way we have plenty of room to build the bed that we need. And I can put the fuel tank back in here, and that's gonna bring the weight more to the center of the rig, and that way we don't have a bunch of negative weight behind us. Now what I have to tell you guys about this thing is I have some good news, some bad news, some great news, some disappointing news, and some fantastic news. So let's start with the bad news. Bad news is I got this T-case temporarily set, but I don't have it permanently set because we have to make a custom drive shaft adapter. So what does that mean? That means I can't permanently mount this to figure out shift levers or anything until I get that drive shaft. Now the good news is I've gotten the parts that I needed from Trail Tough Suzuki stuff, and we are sending that over to Adam's drive shaft, and they are machining some parts that are gonna make this thing adapt up. And once I have those, we can set the T-case. The disappointing news though, is I cannot set this body back on this frame until I have this T-case set, because we're gonna have to modify a lot of the transmission belly pan inside here. The transmission tunnel is what you call it, or the floorboard even, parts of the floorboard, for all of this stuff. Until I know exactly where it sits, I don't want to modify the body until we get that in its place. Now for the great news, if you guys remember, we took this wiring harness and we sent it off to Trail Tough Suzuki stuff. These guys are top of the line when it comes to Suzuki things. They've been doing it for decades, and they've sent back the wiring harness. So now, once we were able to get that body on here, I can start wiring up this engine bay set up for this 2-liter and that Samurai bezel, basically. And now for the fantastic news. If you guys remember, I built some Toyota axles for this thing, and I feel like those are really tough and really strong, and they're nice and narrow, and they will fit on the side-by-side trails. That's what this thing is built for, is to fit on side-by-side trails and get side-by-sides off of side-by-side trails, or quads, or dirt bikes, or anything else that's stuck on a narrow, small trail that's hard to get a Jeep in. I just got off the phone with Matt, and it sounds like somebody is wanting to sponsor a set of axles, or at least assist with a set of axles in the 1-ton form. What does that mean for us? Well, it means that I gotta kind of hold out on doing the suspension because, well, I gotta get some new axles. So I can't use the Toyota axles on this. I have plans for them though. Don't worry, because those are really nice and I spent some money on them. With that being said though, we are kind of at a standstill with this thing because of the limitations. I can't do the suspension without the axles. I can't put the body on until I have this drive shaft. So I'm kind of at a very limited standstill here until we get one of those things happening. Boom. But what I don't want to do is leave you guys high and dry. And I feel like right now is a perfect time to show you how I would have done a 4-link if I was doing it. I'm still gonna do it. I just have to wait for these axles. So I'm gonna show you one that I built years ago. It works, but it doesn't work, and what we can do to correct it and why. Before doing that though, I gotta fix a few things on the bus and get this Bronco off the trailer. If you guys watched the video where we took this bus a 1,500-mile road trip, then you know that I had an issue at the end and the plug fell out. Losing that plug gave me a nice little oil bath, but I was able to rig it up, fix it temporarily with this. Now I have actual brass plugs, thread tape. We're gonna go ahead and put those in, fix that. That way I don't have to think about it. And then we gotta move on to this Bronco that we also picked up. I just need to get it started, which means I'll probably have to put a battery in it. Good thing I got one of these laying around from another rig. That'll work just fine. There we go. There was my fix it. All right, we got one temporary fix to another because, well, it's Saturday and I'm kind of limited on stuff I can get. All right. Hello, dead battery. AAA says, all the metric sizes up in here. Not happy, but it's started. Not a whole lot of brakes on this thing. And because I need more projects, like I need a hole in my head, why not score an LJ20? Oh, look at that, I was right. This is kind of the dead giveaway. And you know it's a 20, or at least a 20. LJ10s were air-cooled. This has a different motor. It's got a Nissan motor, but it still has a factory radiator that looks like it hits the radiator.
All right, just like it. You ever thought about getting rid of it?
See if we can get creative here. I think it's just leaking right out of the hose.
Was it?
Yeah, I might be able to cut it and just extend it, but we'll see here. Yeah, I got nothing. So you guys are as surprised as I am, because yeah. He put it up for sale, and I told him, I said, well, what would you take if I brought cash? And so we came to an agreement. Tells me that this thing runs, so we're gonna see if I can get it running. If we can get this thing to actually run, I'll load it on the trailer. If we can't, we'll just have to winch it up. But it's kind of crazy. This thing's got like a Nissan engine in it. I wasn't totally expecting that. The motor mount's broke, but we'll go over it once we get it back to the house. It's kind of crazy. You just don't see many LJ20s. Bodies, they've done some weird stuff to the body on the door sides of things, and so we'll have to figure out what's going on there, but still an LJ20. But I noticed this wire might have been touching this one. That might have been our issue.
Ah, yeah.
So, anything yet?
We got power.
Yeah, my guess is there's a shorted wire or a blown fuse. But it's showing 12 volts, so. It's a hammock exhaust, huh? Wow. Are you going fast? Can you make car noises? Vroom, vroom. Yeah. Vroom, vroom. All right. All right. Well, that was a really nice family. We had it turn over once, and then it wouldn't turn over again, so I don't know what's going on there. The system must be mad at us. We'll figure it out. Anytime I see a little Zook and it's literally just down the road from my house, I'm gonna scoop it up. Looks so good back there. Look at that thing. Yeah. All right, we made it back to the house with this thing. The more things I look at it, just the more things I find that are just completely hokey. Don't know what I'm gonna do with it yet. Don't even know if I'm gonna build it. I might just put it in the yard and have a nice piece of lawn art. Like I said, this is absolutely hideous. The door opening's down here, and they did some weird stuff with Bondo and things to make that do whatever, I don't know, but I'm gonna try to remove that just so it has the original look. The throttle, or I'm sorry, the clutch cable here for this setup, they ran it up, farmer fabbed that nice, right up down through the shifter hole. Then you have a wood piece because that was probably too tight, so we did a wood column spacer here to lower the column down. And we even got a wood ashtray. That's pretty cool. Obviously our dry rotted tires. Lots of extra little pieces and parts that I don't think I'll ever use for anything. The spare tire carrier looks fantastic. The tailgate looks awesome. Like two of my favorite things about these rigs. This little setup in here. This has got to go. Same thing. Bondo and rust. That's what it just created. Rust is what it did because of the poor job they did there. Obviously the motor, I noticed I did take this to the car wash. On top of all of this they welded on here. Check this out. There's a chain holding the motor forward here because the motor mount's broke, so that's neat. Not sure exactly what I want to do with it other than put it in the yard and make it look cool, because well, that's cool. You know, it's just as small, if not smaller, than some of my old Willis Jeeps, which is, I believe, the proper way to say it. But I've said Willies for forever too, because all the old men that I ever talked to, they always just called them Willies. But I believe it was called Willis Overland. These things are just as small as them, if not smaller. They're super cool. They fit anywhere. They're crazy light. And actually, if you didn't know this, the LJ models, so there's the LJ10, LJ20, LJ40, LJ80, which the 40 and 80s are vastly different in here. You would notice it right away. LJ actually stood for Little Jeep, because Jeep didn't actually own the name Jeep yet at the time. At the time, anything that was four-wheel drive was a Jeep, including the old Scouts and the early Broncos. Everybody called a Jeep. Now those guys would be sad if you called their vehicles a Jeep nowadays. But in this older era, if it was four-wheel drive, it was a Jeep. Now, Shanna's not home right now, so we'll see if I can surprise her by unloading this. In case you're wondering, husbands, that is the best time to buy a project. Just like they'll, you know, if they bring home a pet, they're like, it's a rescue. Well, that's what this is. It's a rescue. Even though I'm pretty sure Shanna would totally let me bring this home. Let's surprise her anyway. I like the idea of her saying, I left and you had a Bronco. I came back and you also had a Suzuki. With the world's craziest exhaust. That's like a swing set or something, and then it's just so cobbled up. That's like one of those soft tents, I think. You know, the little garage things you buy off the interwebs. That's its wired up exhaust. So that's cool. Oh, and check this out. Instead of like cutting out a spot for the bigger transmission with this Nissan engine they put in, they just like torched and peeled open metal. It fits now. Yep, sure does. Either way, this thing deserves to be a nice piece of lawn art at worst. Oh yeah. When you can hold the whole weight of a car, you know it don't weigh much. It wasn't even a thing. Just stopped it. We'll get it in the yard and I'll show you guys. Look at how nice it looks sitting there next to the fence. Just a little piece of history. Good enough-ish. Nothing like some wood body lifts, right? Well, that didn't work. Nothing like a good old wood puck body lift. Now what you're looking at here is a literal 20-plus-year-old buggy. And what it has is it has a 3-link front with a track bar and then a 4-link rear, double triangulated. Which a double triangulated 4-link is what you hear everybody talk about. You need double triangulation, which is true. What you never hear people talk about is length of arms, how much triangulation. People are always just like, oh, you just need to make major triangulation, and where they sit. One of the things I don't see a lot of YouTubers do is talk about link geometry, how it works, and what works and what doesn't. They might just say, hey, I use the 4-link calculator. Well, I can tell you right now, that suspension out there used the 4-link calculator, and it should have worked, but it really doesn't work. And here's why. Number one, when you talk about double triangulation, we're talking about the frame side. If we're looking on top view. So here's the frame. We'll just say this is the end of the frame here. And here is the axle. Okay? Now what we're talking about with double triangulation, which is what that has, is the links for the lower go like that, and the links for the upper go like that. Basically creating a cross suspension, right? So the axle can't move side to side because you have link mounts that are keeping it from being able to do this. So these ones here are the top, and then these ones here are your lowers. Now, as far as what's top and what's bottom, that doesn't matter. But when you have a suspension set up like this, what happens then is when it flexes, you actually do what they call steer flexing. So when this thing flexes, here's your tires, this is gonna flex in, this tire is gonna come in like this, and this tire is gonna wanna come out like this. Now, when you steer, when you flex, it's actually steering under itself, and this tire is trying to roll down underneath itself. If this is the low side and this is the high side, where it's underneath what you're on, and it gets down in there. I know that's kind of hard to see visibly in a drawing. This is definitely overdone of what it would be, but that is a major, major problem that I have with that buggy out there. Now, I've learned how to drive it, but that is one issue. The other issue you have with a over double triangulated setup just like this is what is called jacking. So with this much triangulation, it puts a lot of force on the axle to the frame because there's no give of any kind. And what happens then is when you go forward, let's say this is the side of your rig, okay, and this is a buggy, so we'll just make a pretend buggy look. All right, and this is the tire. What happens is these links, this thing will go up or down just driving. So where mine does this is in two places. If I back up, you will see this suspension raise up. You'll see this axle come down. The other time it does it is when I'm climbing. If you see it climbing, this thing will jack. And what it does is it's bringing the suspension in, and then it's shortening my wheelbase. It gives me more belly clearance, so if it's a breakover, it comes in kind of handy. But any other time where it's like a big wall, this thing starts sitting like this, and my suspension goes from a 105-inch wheelbase, which is center of axle to center of axle, down to about a 100-inch wheelbase, center of axle to center of axle. Now that is the major reason that I have a winch on the back of that thing, so I can keep it sucked down for when I'm backing up or when I'm on a big climb. The problem with that then is it's making the climb steeper if I'm having to keep it sucked down, and the suspension is jumping too deep. It does help having a back winch when you're dropping off stuff too, because you can suck it in. Now one of the other reasons that it's doing this is if you look at the side of the rig again, so here's the side of the rig, let's just say here's the rear tire, is my suspension links on the back, the front, they're down here and they come flat. The rear, they're up here and they go down to the axle, and then these ones are flat. So my lowers are not flat. They're coming down here at an angle, and my uppers are basically flat, which in turn also causes that jacking. And you hear guys talk about anti-squat, and you really can't have enough anti-squat. If you look at portal buggies, anything else, their lower links are always flat or aimed up at the axle, and their upper links are always going from the frame side up to the axle. The green one to show you. So what I mean by that is we need these lower links, if this is the center of the axle tube, to be flat, and we'll make a mount here, and we need the upper links to come up to the top of the axle truss. This is going to correct all of those issues. While doing so, we need to take this suspension and move this rear, these are the lowers, out so that they're not so steep, and that's going to help with the steer flex. So you still have a little bit of triangulation. This is where it's good double triangulated. The uppers, we will still come from over here and come straight, or come into the center. So the uppers are still going to keep this axle from going side to side. The lowers are just going to help somewhat, but most of the stress is going to be on the uppers. And that's not bad. That's no different than what they call a 3-link if you're looking at a vehicle in the front, right? And here's the headlights, here's your windshield, with a single track bar keeping the axle going side to side. With this, you have really 2 links that are keeping it from going side to side, and then these are just a little bit of assistance coming out at an angle. It's not rocket science to build a 4-link. It's just knowing these few steps. You don't want major double triangulation, and you want your lower links flat and your upper links going from the frame up to the axle at best. If they're aimed flat or down, you're gonna get that jacking action. And a good rule of thumb is you want your upper links at least 80% of the length of your lower links. Sometimes in a lot of buggies, you'll actually see the upper links are longer than your lower links even, which really works well. But you definitely want at least, if these are 100 inches, let's just, for case in point, if your lower links are 100 inches long, then you want your upper links to at least be 80 inches long. Now I know that was a lot to go over and a lot of talking, but let me show you exactly what I'm talking about on this buggy. So if you look down here at the frame, you can see that it is flat bellied, but this link going to the front, my front links on the bottom are nice and flat. The rears are hidden way up in there and they come down to the axle. I know that's kind of hard to see, but they're not flat at all. When you compare it to that one that's flat, this camera's a little fish-eyed so you can see it a little better, but this is up higher, much higher, and we need it down here at the same level as that one, so it's nice and flat and not going down. And then you can see my upper links are just flat to the axle. They are not coming up to the axle. And then, like I said, the major over triangulation here with the lower links is causing this thing to steer flex. So when I flex, this rear tire is actually up in here and it steers underneath itself. And it's put me in some very precarious positions from time to time where I've gotten the rear end so stuck under there that I can't get out. It gets underneath a hole and I have to back out and try to get the tire on a rock instead of just letting it float, because it's not chasing the front end, it's steer flexing. Now what I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna pull up to the garage and then I'll back up and you'll watch the rear end just pick up as I'm backing up. And I'm doing nothing, I'm just backing up. It's really hard to see here, but I'm gonna get this for you guys. You can already see I only had this much shocks in the rear. Look at how much shaft I'm already showing. But we'll just keep backing up. Can you guys see that? So as you can see, the front is still flat. I'm only showing just that. That's how much shock I was showing all the way around. Just 3 fingers width, and that's front and back. Now, look at how high this thing is. That's almost 3 hands worth, and I only backed up, what is that, 20, 30 feet? And you can see how stink bugged this is right now and how much shorter my wheelbase is. This thing squats out that way, and it's already sitting like this. My upper rears are aimed downward to the frame to the axle, along with my rear links. Now watch what happens when I drive forward. It'll squat right back out. Now, hopefully the sun isn't ruining the shot, but look at that. We're right back to not even 3 full fingers width on that end. Same with this end. You can see the rig sitting nice and level again, and this rear wheelbase is sucked back out. And that's what I want to fix, because I've been dealing with this for a long time. And like I said, you can wheel it, but there's a major issue there that you can see. You can physically see what it does in a matter of 20 feet, how drastic that jacking is. And then in a matter of just, you know, a couple foot of rock, how bad it flex steers on me. I want to show you my mistakes so that you can learn from this and we can do it right. Now, this same concept happens a lot with people's front suspensions as well. If you see a rig that's like, they start climbing a hill, and it's what I call the moon buggy wave or the Jeep wave, where they're just driving up a rock and the front tire picks off the ground and they just keep driving, then you'll know that the 4-link was probably put in a calculator. That rear 4-link was put in a calculator. It said it should work. It obviously doesn't work. It works, but it doesn't work right. And what I can tell you firsthand, I know a lot of professional buggy builders, they don't use the calculator. The calculator might work in like Baja truck situations, but it doesn't really work for rock crawling. They just say, get your lower links flat, get your upper links aimed up to the axle, and give your triangulation in your upper links, and try to keep your lower links a little straighter. It's really that simple. How much trash I pick up. I only drink water and then my Zivia sodas, but there is all kinds of other things. The Aquafina is probably mine, but all those other things in there aren't. I don't even hardly ever carry snacks when I'm out buggy stuffing. So if you guys don't have a trash bag on your rig, I'd suggest getting one. I'd love if you get one of mine. You can get them on coltbuildsit.com. If you don't, buy somebody's, because they're handy. And when you're sitting at meetings with the Bureau of Land Management or the National Forest, you can show them you have one of these and you've been picking up trash and cleaning up after other people. Trust me, it comes into your advantage down the road when you're trying to justify new trails, keeping trails open, whatever, reopening things. It really works. Little nose heavy with that water in the front. Might just have to lift the links. Now you can definitely see what I was talking about, how there's way too much triangulation in the lowers, not really enough in the uppers, but it's definitely double triangulated. And then how steep all this is. This is so steep. These links are too short, too steep, and you can see this thing is steer flexed, or it's shortened the wheelbase just an astronomical amount. I mean, this tire is now in line with this here. Before, you know, the front of the tire is way back here when it's down on the suspension. So that is a definite problem. Now that we have it up, we can remove the shocks, because I don't have a nitrogen bottle with me, so I got to do these shocks with it off, and then we'll just have to set up the links as we go. But it is nice to know that I can just mount it at that level right here, level with this tube, and it'll work. No questions there. Yucko steer flex. This is usually a solid indicator as well, is when the links keep getting loose on you. You are smashing into them and they're steer flexing. This is what we need to fix. A lot of people say that you need separation height too between your lower links and your upper links, which is true on the axle side, not so much on the frame side. We can have this lower link down here and this upper link right next to it, as long as the separation here is at least like 6-8 inches minimum, which we have well more than that with this truss. All right, I ran over here because guess who just got home?
Hi!
I rescued something.
Oh?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's behind the Jeep.
What? Dude, that's super cool.
Yes.
I like it.
You do fit in it nice.
I do. Oh, it's so cool. Is it a little chimney?
It is a Suzuki, I'm gonna guess 72 LJ20.
Oh, it's so cool.
Little Jeep. And it is tiny. It's like a go-kart.
I love it. Yeah. Good job, baby.
Well, I gotta tell you, that makes me pretty happy that my wife's happy that I'm picking up yard art. Now we need to go ahead and unbolt these shocks, which I think are 3/4. Yeah. Get our electric locker line off the control arm here. Now, one of the things I get asked all the time is, how many miles per gallon do I get out of propane? And the reality is that you really can't check that. Look, probably what I would get if you were on gas. Like, it doesn't, you know, if you're on petroleum versus propane gas or even natural gas, your fuel economy is probably the same across the board. Here's a few pros. A lot of times it might even be cheaper than high octane gasoline if you're buying 91 octane. It is an extremely high octane and it stays that way. So I can let this buggy sit for 5 years, go up and fire it right off. And the propane is still the 100 and whatever octane that it is stock and not lacquer thinner like gasoline will turn into. The other pro is that it's a very simple fuel injection. It runs upside down. It's like one wire to the vaporizer and that's about it. So it's a very, very simple fuel injection. If you don't like wiring, this might be an option you'd like. Downsides, it takes a little while for the propane to get to the vaporizer and open up. Every time I try to start a vehicle that's on propane, it takes a minute for that first startup. Once you've started it, and if you're running it regularly, it just starts right up first kick, like it, no problem, like a regular car. But that first startup's almost like a carbureted vehicle. It takes it a minute to kind of fire off. Propane also likes high pressure. So if you're gonna put a little turbo on it, something like that, propane actually likes that. Now, a few quick cons. Propane does not like cold weather. If it's cold out, it runs a lot worse than it does when it's warm out. It's kind of heavy and you always have to have spare bottles. Also, like when you go to fill it up, some places you actually have to find out if they fill propane. They're like, we fill propane. They're like, no, we just do bottle exchanges, which I won't do because this is a forklift setup. You have to actually get your bottles filled because I run aluminum bottles. I don't want to trade it out for somebody's junky steel one. And then what I consider is probably the #1 con of running propane is nobody ever has a spare gallon of propane. So you want to have a few extra bottles because if you run out, you're out. Like nobody's like, hey, we can siphon some propane off of my rig. That doesn't happen. All right, all the bolts are loose up at the frame side. We'll go ahead and start pulling them out. We'll see if the drive shaft rides or if I gotta take it out too. All right, so we got everything disconnected minus the drive shaft and the brake line, but the brake line should be fine as long as I don't try to do something ridiculous. The control arms, what I'd like to do is reuse my lower one. Realistically, I could cut the brackets off, make all new links, and go to town, but this is like, I want to show you kind of a budget way to fix a 4-link. If you were to buy a used rig, odds are you're gonna be money ahead, but odds are you're gonna have to fix some things. Unless you're buying a name brand one like Sasquatch, or Holst, or Twisted, or Jesse Haynes, somebody like that, Randy Slauson. Like I said, odds are you're gonna be fixing it, you're gonna be changing it if you want it to work right. But you're still way money ahead because building new is expensive, just like buying a new car. In this case, what I'm trying to do is to not have to make lower control arms. Odds are I'm still gonna have to make uppers or extend these out, like cut them, sleeve them, but lowers, I'm gonna try to just use that. Yes, that's gonna extend my wheelbase. When I kick this straighter, that's gonna bring the rear back. I'm okay with that because 105 is pretty short in Farmington. Like that's a very short wheelbase in Farmington, New Mexico. Most of the guys here are running 112 and up. If you're unsure with wheelbase, that's measured center axle to center axle. So yeah, like I said, this thing is extremely short for this area and it's not gonna hurt it to come back 3 inches or so and get us out to like 108. To do that, I definitely gotta cut these off though, because this angle is not gonna work. That's too steep. We wanna get it straight into that frame, which means I cannot use the brackets that are here. Let me rephrase that. I might be able to if I can heat these up and bend them the angle I need them, and then I can plate the top. Maybe. I didn't think about that. We might do that. So our new angle for this is gonna be about like that. So I'm just gonna take that and then I'll figure out my angles for this bracket. All right, so I got all my pieces measured out, put them on Fusion, designed them. Now we can go ahead and cut them up. Put them on my thumb drive. Should, look at that, bam. We have all of our pieces pre-cut. I got some weld washers, different things that I want to use. But I also kind of changed my mind. Once I started designing this thing was all like 1/8 inch plate and a little bit of 3/16 in certain areas. I wanted to do quarter because you can see that it's bent. Like this 3/16 is all just bent up. So I decided to step up to 1/4 inch plate, which I think will be much, much better. I don't think, I know it'll be much better. But it took me a minute to get everything built, designed, and cut for the change up. And it's nighttime, and Shanna's getting tired, I can see it, because she's literally just sitting there now. She's like, I'm done, Colt. So I guess I'm done. So I will see you guys in the morning. New day. And if you guys remember, I got these cut last night. I got some slag on here, mostly because I didn't want to change my speed. But for me, I can just take this slag and just go like this, and it just pops right off. So it's not very hard to get off. It's just, I probably could have sped it up a little bit, but being a 1/4 inch plate, I wanted it to cut good and straight. And so that's why I actually slowed down the torch speed. But you can see it's coming right off pretty easily. Now just a handful more to do. So I got all my mounts cleaned up, ready to get welded on, but I want to go ahead and cut this because you guys remember this is at a ridiculous angle. I'm trying to figure out how I want to cut it or I'm not having to modify too much. I think what I'm going to do, you can see this is bowed in just a little bit. It's got a dimple in it. So I did make some weld washers for this. So I think I'm gonna heat this up, bend this out, cut this side off completely. That way we can use this one going forward, and then this one will have a new plate, 1/4 inch plate for it. But before I start cutting, one of the things that I really like is, so far I think the best safety glasses for my fat head are made by this company. Don't ask me to say that. Univit, I don't know. They're called No Cries. They seem to fit my head better. They're adjustable. I can extend these out and extend them this way. So the No Cries have a lot of adjustment. So do these Bolets. So I can put these on and then I can roll them to fit my head so it keeps a nice tight seal around my face. So these are the two I've liked a lot so far. But we do have some more mail. So I went over to the Colt Builds It mailbox and figured we might as well run through this stuff. So this is Bernard Potter from Canada. Ooh, some more Nova Scotia plates. So Nova Scotia veteran plate. That's pretty cool. I want just really one for each state, and I have all the US states, so I really don't need any states, but when somebody sends me something special, like a war veteran, firefighter, something like that, I do have a special place on the wall where I put those. So this one will definitely go up. So thank you, Bernard. This one I'm really excited about trying because these came from Paul Adair. He messaged me and said, I got you some eye muffs. So thank you, Paul. This is super cool. I want to try these. I've heard good things. And yeah, look at that. It even comes in a nice cover. Man. These are fancy. Do they fit my head? I can hear you. Can you hear me? I can't hear anything in these. These are great. Save my hearing. This one's from Hector in California, but it's addressed to Shanna. What does it say?
You'll have to find out later. It might be my joke.
Oh. Oh, look at these spectacles. They even kind of smell like my dad. These would be like ones my dad had when I was a kid. Smell like old cigarettes. They don't fit my head though, I already know, because he had these and they didn't fit my dome. These will be nice for Shanna.
Ooh.
I'll put them in the collection. These came from Stephen and Katrina, so thank you guys. These are old school. Like, I don't know where you found these, but my dad used to have a set of these, so thank you. This one came via Amazon, so I'm not sure who they came from, but another set of Bollé safety glasses. So these are the ones of the sets that I do like, so I appreciate that. Thank you. I'll put these in my, I've scratched the other set, and I need to put these on pile. Just bolt in. That's gonna let us know where straight is here. Then I get to lay on my butt. Woohoo! All I did here was trim into that, pull it out, and then we got a straight line for our control arm. So now, instead of being in way in here, it's out quite a bit. Now granted, we are tilted way up, and this is just so I can access this. Once I get the inner pieces tacked in, then we'll bring it back down, set our shock mounts, and figure everything else out. But this is just temporary to get us where we need to be. So I already measured this control arm to that control arm. They're exactly the same length. So all we need to do now is just match this side to that side, and then I'll let you know where we're at. We got this side to match this side. It just took some measuring this way. Took some measuring from the center of that front axle to the center of this front axle. So we've now actually stretched this by just turning that out. This thing has a 110-inch wheelbase, so I gained a 5-inch wheelbase by just turning it out. I didn't change control arms or anything, but just getting the lowers squared out gave us that much more, which is fine. 110's pretty ideal for this area. It's a little longer than I like, because I'm one of those guys that actually thinks if your suspension geometry is set up right, it doesn't matter how short or long your wheelbase is. Either way, we got our brackets in, I tacked everything up, and now we have a good starting point. So at this point, I'm gonna lower this down to where the suspension is flat, because that's how our control arms are gonna be now, is about there. You can see how much higher they would have been, and now they're nice and flat. Similar to the front, we need to set our shock mounts. So what I did here is these are just basically ride height. So we only had 2 inches of up travel or so. That's exactly what this is. Up travel to down travel in a rock crawler, 2 or 3 inches isn't a big deal because you're gonna get it all in droop, which is great. In a race car, you better have a lot more than that because you're gonna be hitting stuff at high speed. You'll feel it if you don't have 4 to 6 inches up travel easily. That kind of tells me where we will be, which is good. Coolio. All right, we now have our shock tabs. Now, one thing I will do is I am gonna go ahead and plate this, and then I might even just run a little tube up to here from the shock, and that way it gives it a little bit of support. The shock tabs can't bend. Plus, if you see how the old ones were, we are pretty much in line exactly how they were. This way with a little 1-inch tube here, that's also going to structuralize it. Either way, we now have our shock mounts in. Now ideally you want your shocks as straight as possible. I didn't want to have to cut the lower ones up, and that's kind of how that fell. So I'm just going with it, calling it good. Yeah, it won't be the end of the world with a little bit of angle one way or the other. But like I said, ideally the straighter your shocks are, the more length you're going to get out of them, the more flex you're going to get out of them, and the better off everything will be. Now that we have it tacked together, everything's kind of sitting here like it's supposed to, I want to go ahead and measure my upper control arms. Originally, I was thinking I wanted to come from here down and build new mounts that were down here lower. But this, at this angle, still gives me a little bit of downhill. So it's not a lot, it's a little bit going down to the frame. I think I'm gonna be okay with that. I'm just gonna call it okay. We just have to get a measurement from this one to this one so we can extend these correctly. I used a jack to set the pinion back up, aimed straight at the transfer case yoke, so we kind of have the angle we need there. Ugh. We're getting closer by the minute to having a nice rock crawler again. Good. That way this one should read 8.2 still. Good enough. All right, new upper lengths need to be 35 inches long. Right now, they were quite a bit shorter, so I cut it. I've measured 35 inches here. This is our gap, and I'm just putting this in the middle because it really doesn't matter. This is a quarter wall tube. Realistically, you don't need quarter wall for an upper length, but you need the quarter wall for the parts that are hitting the rocks, not so much for the parts that aren't. But I'm gonna go ahead and do quarter wall because it's 2 inch. The inside diameter is gonna be 1.5 inches. I got some 1.5 inch quarter wall. We will just cut it, sleeve it in there. That'll get us nice and true. And then I can weld it back together and not even have to worry about doing a bigger piece because that's plenty thick enough. May look a little hokey, but it'll work just fine. And that didn't work well. All right, now normally when you have a tube like this and you're splicing it together, you want to use a couple pieces of angle iron and that'll sandwich it. But this thing is so snug that it had zero deflection, zero room. And I got a piece in here, I don't know, about 3 or 4 inches in on each side. It's more than stout and it's for sure straight. I don't even have to worry about the angle. Yeah, let's just burn it in. All right, so we got one arm in, and you can see how it goes from the axle down to the frame. Our lower links are flat. What this is gonna do, number one, is the more steep our upper is down to the frame, the more smooth our pinion angle is gonna stay, so it's not gonna fluctuate a bunch. If your upper control arm's aimed up, your pinion moves a lot with the flex. So that's gonna help with that. Obviously, it's also gonna help with the ride. I know for sure this thing is not going to jack now when I wheel it or when I back up. And one of the things I do wanna mention is if you look at like what Paul did with the FJ, he goes with the lowers in, he triangulates the lowers and then his uppers are straighter. and it works. That works just fine. The only reason why I like to have it this way is I've had this happen in more than one occasion, and you can see the rocks here to prove it, is I've slid on a rock, driven up, slid on a rock on my control arm, on my belly pan down here, and then the second I come to my control arm, because my control arm is in, it falls up in here, and now I'm completely off the line. My tire fell off the rock, and then I'm stuck, and I have to back up and reassess my line completely. So with your control arms, your lower control arms being a straight line all the way across, now if you hit a rock and you're sliding on a rock, you can slide on that rock on your flat belly and then on your lower link on the rear to your tire. Hopefully that makes sense why I want to do it the way I'm doing it, why I do it the way I did it, and why I chose to do it the way I did it. Like I said, now if I were to have built this fresh, I would probably lower that upper link down at the frame even more, but it's low enough for what I'm doing with this thing. I'm kind of over it. It's been a lot of work here, so even though it doesn't seem like a lot, all these little cuts, all the measuring, that's where it really gets you. I did measure. One of the things I want to mention is we measured wheelbases on both sides from center axle to center axle. Also measured bolt of the control arm on this end to the bolt hole on the front so that I knew that they were straight as well. And then I used my angle finder to make sure that my lower links were at the same angle. So once you cross measure, up measure, do all your other measurings, lots of measurings, then you can go ahead and keep going. I just didn't show that because, well, realistically, I don't know if you guys would just want to see me pulling a tape measure 500 times. With that being said, now that we have our upper link in, the axle can't move, I can take this out of the way. This is no big deal now. And then we can go ahead, I'll make the exact same 35-inch long arm for the upper on this side. And in case I didn't mention it, my lower links are 33. So I'm actually 2 inches longer with my upper links, which will also help with that pinion angle. It won't make the pinion angle swing a bunch as it flexes. It's gonna turn out really nice. I think this thing is gonna work quite el primo. All right, so I got a bunch of different measurements for all these pieces I need to make that I'm just going to use for gussets, supports, and other things. And I think I'll go in, get those designed, and cut them in the morning. It's been a long day. We had a few other things going on today, so I've been in and out of the shop a little bit, but the upper links are tightened, the lowers aren't, but everything's welded in pretty good. And then now I just want to get these tabs in and get this supported, because then we can pick this whole thing up even off these bars, and then I can weld in all the brackets, all the supporting brackets that I want to put in. But you can see here, at least get a better view maybe of the 4-link now. Yeah, gonna be great. See you in the morning. New day, new face. So the first thing I want to do real quick is just weld my plates in here. I got all my measurements for all the additional pieces I want to put on, but I do want to get this upper one on just so that I know it's not going to flex. And then once I have that on, we're going to pick it up. We got to pull this drive shaft so that we can make a new one. And there's our shock plates. And just like that, we got shock mount supports. I feel better about that. Feel like it won't let it roll now. Should be able to pick it up. Should being keyword. Yep, look at that. Oh yeah. Ooh. Bouncy. Don't think it's gonna go anywhere. Just bouncy. Got it. There. This poor thing's seen a few rocks. What do you guys think? All right, all I want to do here is just take a total length of this thing, which is right at 2 feet, and I'm gonna add, we gained 5 inches of clearance, but this thing was bottomed out, so I'm just gonna go 4.5 inches longer we gained 5 inches of wheelbase, 28 and a half. This piece is sitting right at about 6 inches, so we need to be about 10 and a half inches. That should do it. Let's cut this off and see if we can get that cleaned up. There we go. Booyah. All right, we got our pieces off. Now we just got to get a new one. So a lot of people don't know this, but Offroad used to be a salvage yard as well. So there's still a little bit of salvage stuff left, and they'll give you a good price on it. That's what I'm trying to find. This is a very oddball tube size. Oh, there's hornet's nests, extra hornet's nests. I could slide that over it to make that work, over the whole thing. Might have to do that. That might be our only option. Double down like that. They had this used drive shaft that is a close enough tube. I'll have to go on the outside, but it'll work. And I got a good deal on it. Normally they don't sell used parts because they've stopped doing that, but I bet if you ask real nice, you can probably get a deal on something if they have it. Otherwise, they carry lots of new parts. Well, let's head back so we can go make a temporary drive shaft until I can call Adams with measurements and get a good one. Time to cut a piece of tubing. Woohoo! All right, so we got our drive shaft just set in here, bolted in, and I have just a tack weld, one on each end of the tube, because now we got to get it straight. And you can see this thing is completely off kilter. Not unexpected because I used a Harbor Freight bandsaw that cut crooked, and then obviously this can't really get trued up. So I got to tap this up, and then I can take my dial indicator and I'll set it on here, and then we can chase the run out once I get it close. All right, it's all welded up. All right, so I cut that piece, put it on there. I had 87.5. Over here I got 87.4. You're not gonna see that 100th, but if you're ever curious, you can always eyeball it down as well. So we know we're good there. Just kind of making sure we're set close in the same spots here. We look pretty good. We now have a nice support for our shock that we didn't really have before. So the nice part about that is if I did ever really come down hard on my rear end somehow or on my shocks, this set before, I mean, that could have buckled it up. Where in this case, it's gonna support it. It's gonna give it a lot more strength and a lot more rigidity, because you know I love rigidifying things. All right, just so you guys can see how good this suspension works now, check this out. I'll set it down and I'll pick it back up. Just watch the pinion. You'll kind of get a good idea what's going on. That's full droop. That's full up. You couldn't tell that pinion is just following that CV or double cardan, which is what you want. You want that pinion shooting right up to that double cardan. So that's perfect. That's exactly what we want. Obviously, I cut these just any place. I didn't really measure them. I didn't feel it would be that obvious, but it's pretty obvious that these were cut in two different spots, but whatever. It works. So we now have new links. If you go back, you have all the dimensions. I gave you all the angles plus all the links. Our upper links are about 2 inches longer than our lower links. We have everything supported, gusseted. We went to a 1/4 inch plate stuff in here and then did a 1/4 inch plate for this 3/16 as a weld washer. Nice big one. Shouldn't have any issues with movement on this thing. We got our new drive shaft. We just got to put our shocks on. We even got our new shock mounts. Reason why I kept the shocks off, obviously you don't want to get weld slag on the shafts. We can now, wow, that's even gonna come up just even a little bit higher than what that is. It's a lot of droopy droop. Just call me Mega Lift. Yeah, super flex. I like it. I like it a lot. All right, it's down. Added a little bit of nitrogen to the shock, so there's a little bit, sit a little higher, so it keeps the rig level because my shock length has changed a little bit. I'm gonna have this much more up travel, and I'm gonna lose that much down travel out of the rear, which is actually a good thing because I had too much down travel. The axle was actually swooping in way too deep, and it would get me in bad spots. So with it like this, we're in much better shape. Our front shocks are still only, you know, less than that. You know, we already know it's 3 fingers of up shock on that front end, but it's together. So we cranked this thing out, and in the morning we are headed to 4x4 week. So I'm gonna put the propane bottles in, and tomorrow I will back it up and show you guys that it isn't gonna jack anymore, which is good. We already know it's gonna flex better, like it just shows it. But my main concern is with it jacking, because we know if it's jacking, then it probably won't flex either, or it's not gonna flex right. That'll be our telltale. Also wanted to get my first aid kit in here, so that bad boy is sitting right there. So if you guys want one, race 401, use code Colt Builds It, you get 10% off. And get yourself a race ready first aid kit. Good morning. Let's get this thing started and drive it out. I gained an alternator squeak. All right, well that was easy. Just had to tighten up the alternator a little bit.
Why did they only make one Yogi Bear?
Because if they had more than one, they'd have too many boo-boos.
Close, close. Because then they made a boo-boo.
Ah.
That's for you, Hector. Thank you.
And like I mentioned about propane, once you get that first initial startup, then it starts right up. All right, so as you can see, this thing drives forward, backs up, no jacking. It's gonna flex, it's not gonna steer flex. It's gonna work so much better. It's gonna keep my rig stable, and it's gonna allow me to work over rocks without any issues. So I hope that all made sense. If it doesn't, ask down there. Maybe I can help you. I also got another 4-link video when I was working on the Pacer, so we'll eventually one day get back to that. But until then, see you guys next time. Appreciate you watching.
Bye, everybody.